Old Old House by Albert Monkeyfist. The old house. It had dismantled apple carts for shutters on the windows. It had a fence made out of big wooden doors taken off of churches and Masonic temples, all nailed together around the perimeter. It had rained so many times on the old doors the sun had come and beat down on them to suck the rain back out. So many times. They were all warped, leaning in different directions like some old peasant's teeth. They rotted away. The lights never, ever came on. Who lives in there? I asked my mother 26 years ago. Nobody. If they do, they're probably just bums. The ones in jail, they don't pray and they draw and write on themselves. In the backyard, there was a small pile of bicycles, rusting. A shed had burned down, and its black skeleton huddled in the corner. The door, clinging to the leaning frame. Some kids once climbed the tree in the front of the yard a long time ago, and hung bottles from its branches that would barely sway even in a strong wind, but occasionally clink into one another. Nothing was cinematic about this house, not the overturned floral sofa on the ground by the porch, not the vines and weeds that grew out of it, and especially not the collection of bright orange stickers attached to the front door and windows. I concluded it was 1608, the address. The houses on either side were 1606 and 1610. They still had the numbers attached to them. I wished then there was something that would drive me inside the house. Maybe a little girl would go missing and I find a piece of material with the same pattern as the dress she was last seen in, clinging to a sharp nail on the back gate. I walk slower when I pass the house, perhaps to catch a muffled scream coming from the basement, something that would draw me close. The camera from the crane shot narrows to my face, my eyes, they widen, and I turn and run only to lay awake at night. Finally, throw the covers off where I am fully dressed and venture out in the darkness with a flashlight, a rope, a pocket knife, back to the house, and crawl towards the basement window on the damp ground where... But it never came up. I never heard anything. I only occasionally heard the clink of empty bottles in the tree. I had an older cousin who lived a street over from it, and on a hill from his back porch I could see the upstairs windows at night. When the houses around it were lit up from activity, hers was blacker than the sky itself. Silent they were, like a tomb, like a mausoleum, if it had windows, as if by misled intention or chance tradition, mausoleums were designed to have windows because it was intended for the eager dead to look out but not escape, or for the jealous dead to look in but not enter. Ghosts would not stay there any more than sparrows would stay in the charred boughs of her tree. I would follow my cousin out to his porch. I stared out at the rooftops while he talked to the air. I don't know why she wants to leave me, man. Maybe she doesn't like herself? I nodded and watched the black space growing. Even ghosts would not stay. What has a house to offer? What, when all its life is drawn? My head was humming. I think I felt like this ever since I saw this picture on her fridge. It was her when she was little. My cousin was talking. He wasn't next to me anymore. He meandered about in the fuzzy din of static in my head. My ears picked up his presence. I saw the black windows of the house falling toward me, growing, the blackness spilling out of them. My cousin's voice was like a slippery radio signal. I looked at that picture every time I went over to her place, man. He was coming from inside the house, and his face appeared behind the black window, staring out at me. How'd you get in there? Can you see out the window? I must be hovering in the air in front of him. It was like she was that little girl, and she looked all innocent, like asking me why I was doing this to her life, She had no idea I was going to come around and mess it up. He came in more clear now. The glass rattled slightly at his voice. I must be hovering, I thought again. Or I was on a string like one of those bottles and was swaying in the wind. A string. It's keeping me from touching the window. I feel like she was looking at me. She was looking at whoever was taking the picture, but in a way I took the picture, How some people used to think cameras would steal your soul? Well, he kept talking, but the wind carried the words away, and he took a step backwards and disappeared from the window, and it went blacker still. The sounds went out, and soundless there was no weight. There's a package for you. I left it in your room, my mother said when I came home. I opened the box and spilled its contents on my bed. A musty, damp smell wafted out, and there were 2 sheets of old mildewed wallpaper. The weight was due to a piece of floorboard, and there were bits of drywall in there as well. I turned the box over. I was right. No postage. It was from 1608. It had been a late night, not for me, because I was used to staying up much later than this. I stay up until the heroic hours, the hours that are practically the next day. If you want to be practical about it, I never am, or I never used to be. It was, on the other hand, a late night for her. Her slight frame scuttling across the parking lot toward her car. It was freezing cold, and there was ice that we narrowly missed on the way in. I had a moment to wait while she unlocked the doors. My hand went into the front pocket of my jeans and found the small square piece of wood in there. I turned it around and around in my hand, feeling the edges, feeling the splinters. A hole that held a nail that held maybe a picture was in the wood. I got in the car and shivered from the cold outside, the heat blaring through the vents. Susie said, I still remember your old phone number when you lived at that townhouse before you had a cell phone or anything. I heard her voice, but the sound of shutters slamming in the wind sort of drowned her out. Old number, townhouse, before, phone. It's because the last 4 digits spelled out MNKE, monkey. Get it? So, the whole number was 284 monkeys. I just imagine all those monkeys in a cage whenever I had to think of your number. Yeah, I thought so, I said. Susie had placed her hand on my thigh at this point and was moving it up and down. It's funny, I don't remember very much about that time in my life. I could remember a lot, but I don't remember feeling anything, except the times when you were around. Wind chimes. I heard wind chimes. I swore there was a wind chime maybe hanging on her rear view mirror swaying in the breeze of the vents, but there wasn't. I felt for a minute that I was in the midst of the wind that blows around in an empty birdhouse when the bird had flown. I had this feeling suddenly hit me in the stomach. I was in a car, in the cold, in the night, with my cousin's girlfriend. I was making a mistake. That's not what was in my stomach. That wasn't the weight that I had felt. The weight wasn't a feeling. I began to think it was an actual object. A tumor? Maybe. I think it was Susie here that once told me that her grandmother had a 10-pound tumor removed from her stomach. And when they took it out, the doctor held it up while a picture was taken of it. That's how you know something was really fucked up with you. When they operate on you, they take a fucking picture of whatever comes out of you. When they took the tumor out, they picked it apart, and there was teeth and hair inside of it. Her evil twin, I thought. Maybe I have an evil twin inside me too, some half-formed, semi-sentient flesh ball that is pissed off that he wasn't the one born, and he doesn't have a dick or hands to jack off with, at least even if he did. And if he is going to take it out on anyone, it's going to be me. I was beginning to postulate that all cancer was the remains of a jealous potential twin that was just extracting its revenge on its host brother, when Susie spoke up again. Do you remember that time when I got ditched by those friends I had and I walked 3 miles to your place? You were in that townhouse. I ended up at your back patio door and I knocked forever until you let me in. I remember I was freezing. I was only wearing a hoodie and some short shorts. Do you remember? Do you remember that? Do you have a picture of yourself on your refrigerator? I suddenly found myself asking her. Do I have a what? A picture of yourself. Do you have a picture of yourself on your refrigerator? Well, yeah, but how did you know? No, I had that old picture on there. I mean, it's from when my dad and I took a trip to... Will you please take it down from there? Susie had both her hands firmly on the wheel at this point. You want me to, okay, fine, yeah. I will take the picture down if that's what you want, okay? That would mean a lot to me, I said. I turned straight ahead towards the wet road. I thought I might feel a bit troubled by my sudden rough exchange, but instead I felt sort of comforted. Maybe something rough and ugly had been expelled from me. I faced forward, and the road is wet, but the sky is clear, and the tires hiss on the road like static on a desperate radio. The rain is streaming on the window now, behind her head. I was beginning to regret this whole trip back home, to regret the very idea of coming back home after so many years away from it. Whatever I expected to gain had been crushed by crippling disappointment. What did I expect to learn? What did I exactly expect to learn? I walked right through the front door, which was unlocked even at 2 a.m, right past my insomniac father, lying on the couch reading a magazine while eating leftover takeout and watching television without noticing me. I think it was a documentary about wasps. The insects, not the white people. I went upstairs into my old room. My old room, that is, because it was my room 2 rooms ago, before I got my sister's room across the hall when she moved out. This was the cramped room that fit a twin bed and scarcely much else, although it didn't seem so small at the time when I slept in it years ago. I entered, soaking wet, and sat down on the bed. Water trickled out my pants leg onto the floor. My hair was plastered to my face and forehead, naturally after walking 1.5 miles in the pouring rain. I should have gotten undressed right away, but I thought I would rather sit and stare at myself in the blank television screen instead. I looked myself dead in the eye and slowly knelt and then lay down on the hardwood floor, curling up, fully dressed and drenched in rain. Even my socks were wet. Right below me, perhaps my father's reading would be interrupted by a drop of water from the ceiling, hitting his true crime magazine. Then another. Looking up, he may see a puddle on the ceiling. There was a lot of dust under the TV stand. Now that my head was on the floor, I could see it. I only tried to help my cousin because I had nothing else to do. And also, whenever he would complain or whine, it would hurt my ears like a high-pitched frequency, like they were going to bleed if he didn't shut up. The rain was streaming against the window behind Susie's head in the car when we pulled up in her driveway. I protested that this wasn't my parents' home, but she just put her finger to my lips to suggest I be silent. I thought I had acted appropriately, but now, as I thought, I began to remember more. And I felt the stab of regret. Instead of taking the hint from her, I first kept talking. I shouldn't be away so long. You know, my father is sick, and my mother is not well either. That's why I'm here after all. That was when she told me to be quiet. The rain was streaming against the window. I can see the rain, the red light against the rain. She asked if I ever thought about her. Her hand was on my neck. I remember you. I remember. The heat from her body grew as she leaned in. That heat, burning. She didn't know. How could she know? I didn't come here for her, for my idiot cousin, for that fucking house, for anything. I just wanted to be left alone. I didn't have the strength. I remember that expression that's on her face just now. I saw that same expression, sort of half exhausted and surprised, on an even colder night. The lake had frozen over, and I found a hole in the ice near the shore, just large enough. Was that a nightmare? The part where this girl was chasing me in the woods. She was wet, just having emerged from the bottom of the lake, her hair caked in mud and algae. Her body was entwined with ropes, and at the end of the ropes, around her arms were tied cinder blocks, which she would swing around by the ropes and try and hit me with all her might. I turned around in time to see a cinder block hit a tree, sending bark flying towards me. I keep running. I snap awake. It had only been a few minutes. I was still on the floor. My head felt like it was nailed to the floor. I could barely move. I was so stiff. The air in my old room was stifling. I can't fucking breathe. I reached up and turned on the television. Let the stairway run over me. Stick your pins in me, too. I can't breathe in the heat. I can't breathe. It was dark. It was extremely dark. It suddenly dawned on me that I had been asleep. But as long as I was asleep, it should have been daylight by the time I awoke. Either this was not where I had slept, or there was another idea about daylight. I felt heat on my back, and in my mouth a dry thirst like I had never known before. So I am left alone in the desert, parched. But the four walls that once held me, now they start to recede. I could not have known. I was once in my little old room, where I grew up, but this is not it. I awoke in a black and cold cell. I could hardly move. The darkness more dark than a boarded-up theater, darker than the receded eyes of Mew. I listened for a moment. Nothing but the scarce shuffle of insect legs, gnawing of rats in the walls. I panicked. Only for a moment. Then I realized where I was. I was there. I was in 1608. The old house. felt suddenly warmed like I was home. Home for the first time since going home. How is that? Why? I felt safe enough to venture out of the door. Without a sound, I went down the dark hallway. I knew this place. Once. That door. In the corner of the kitchen. It goes downstairs into the basement. I can swear that the door frame, is breathing. At least expanding. I swore I saw the door going in and out, like the invisible hand that exists where it does not really exist. I was shoved toward the door, and down a rickety splintered Jacob's ladder that led down into the blackest depths. That's the basement, the killing floor. They are swarming. Can you hear something swarming? This is it. A single chair on that floor sits, facing the wall. I suppose I should sit. You can hear that swarming, can't you? In the corner. Oily rags or a cast-off tar. It stirs. And something is rising. It is a familiar frame. Arms, neck, trunk. It's rising. But like frames were dropped out. Where there should be a face, there is caved in a pumpkin left on the porch a week past Halloween. And did it try to cry out? I did not want to hear it. It did try to cry out. And at me, it was moving toward me. I must have done something. I did that to it. Stem, arms. There were ropes familiar, like in my dreams. No breaks. They were rotten. The stairs could never hold me. The door shut itself. The breathing, the only breathing that was by the door, has ceased. Shut. I am alone with it, and it moves toward me. I will not turn around. I feel the rancid exhaust that was breathing against me. I am cold. I am overcome. I did it. I did it. I did it. Please, make her let go.